Overthinking is one of the silent killers of human potential. It keeps you stuck in a loop, spinning, worrying, replaying scenarios that never even happen in reality. And the truth is this: most people are not exhausted because of their lives. They're exhausted because of their thoughts about their lives. They're not tired from doing too much. They're tired from doing nothing but thinking too much. Every time you overthink, you are giving your fears more power than your possibilities. You are feeding the part of you that wants to stay small, safe, predictable. But life doesn't reward people who stay in their heads. Life rewards people who take action. Life rewards people who interrupt their patterns. Life rewards people who decide that enough is enough. If you're stuck in overthinking, it is not because you're weak. It's because your mind is doing what it has been trained to do, protect you. But protection turns into prison when it stops you from moving forward. Your mind can either be your greatest weapon or your greatest wall, and today you get to choose which one it becomes. The first step to stopping overthinking is physically breaking the pattern. You cannot think your way out of overthinking. You must move your way out of it. Change your body, change your breath, change your physiology. Stand up, walk fast. Shake your body out, do push-ups. Blast your favorite music. Your nervous system responds to motion. When your body shifts, your mind has to follow. You interrupt the loop, and suddenly the thought that felt like a mountain becomes something you can step over. The second step is focusing on what you can control. Overthinking thrives in uncertainty. It feeds on what-ifs, on assumptions, on imaginary futures. But the moment you bring your attention back to what you can influence right now, the grip loosens. Ask yourself, what is the next step I can take? Not the next 10 steps. Not the perfect step, just the next one. Momentum destroys overthinking. Even a small action unlocks clarity that hours of thinking never will. Third, stop demanding perfection from yourself. Most overthinking doesn't come from fear of failure. It comes from fear of not being perfect. You fear choosing wrong. You fear being judged. You fear not meeting some invisible standard. But perfection is a trap. No one grows by getting everything right. People grow by trying, adjusting, learning, moving. The cure to overthinking is not perfection. The cure is progress. Fourth, give your mind a mission. Overthinking happens when your mind is idle, drifting, unchallenged. A mind without direction becomes a playground for fear. But a mind with a mission becomes unstoppable. Set clear goals. Decide what matters. Give yourself standards, routines, targets. When you know where you're going, you have less time to obsess over meaningless details. And finally, build the habit of courage. Overthinking is the habit of fear. Taking action is the habit of courage. Courage doesn't mean you're not afraid. Courage means you choose to move despite the fear. Every time you take action, you teach your mind that you're in control. Not the fear, not the doubt, not the noise. And the more you practice, the quieter overthinking becomes. Listen carefully. Your life does not change when you think about changing. Your life changes when you act. One decision, one step, one interruption of the pattern can shift everything. Stop letting imaginary problems steal real moments from your life. Stop letting fear sit in the driver's seat. Stop giving your mind permission to run wild without direction. You deserve a life that is lived, not just analyzed. A life that is experienced, not just imagined. A life that moves forward, not one that stays stuck replaying the same thoughts over and over again. Overthinking is not who you are. It is just a habit, and like any habit, it can be broken with awareness, with intention, and with action. Today is the day you take your power back. Today is the day you stop letting your thoughts control you. Today is the day you begin living instead of overthinking, because you are stronger than the thoughts that scare you. You are bigger than the doubts that try to shrink you. And your future is waiting for you, not in your head, but in your actions. Overthinking begins in a moment so small you almost don't notice it. A thought shows up harmless at first, but instead of letting it pass, you hold it, you twist it, you examine it from every angle until it becomes something heavy. and the longer you stay still, the stronger it grows. That's why the fastest and most powerful way to break the cycle is not by debating the thought, not by replacing it, not by trying to outsmart it, but by interrupting the pattern physically. Your body is the switch that can shut down the endless loop your mind is running. Most people try to think their way out of overthinking, but you cannot solve a problem inside the same state in which it was created. When your body is still, tense, shallow in breath, your mind spirals. When your body moves, shifts, energizes, your mind can't hold the same emotional grip. So the moment you feel that familiar loop starting, you must interrupt it with action. Stand up. Stretch your arms wide. Change your posture. Breathe deeply. Move your feet. Shake your hands. Jump in place. Walk in the opposite direction. Anything that changes the physical state you're in. Your physiology is the foundation of every emotion you feel. Think about the moments when stress feels overwhelming. Your shoulders tighten, your chest closes in, your breath shrinks, your eyes narrow. Your body is telling your mind to panic. Now imagine someone in a powerful state. Shoulders back, breathing deep, posture tall, energized movement. Their mind cannot produce the same level of fear because the body isn't supporting it. When you interrupt the physical pattern, you interrupt the emotional one. This is not theory. This is biology. Your nervous system responds instantly to motion. Your hormones shift. Your breath regulates. Your energy changes. When you change the state of your body, the brain waves associated with worry and rumination weaken. What felt like a huge obstacle a moment ago begins to shrink because you're no longer trapped in the same internal posture. Overthinking grows in stillness. It feeds on inactivity. The more you sit, the more you sink into the quicksand of your thoughts. Your brain loves repetition, and if it notices you replaying scenarios over and over again, it assumes that is what you want it to do. You have to break the repetition with something disruptive. Even something as simple as standing up quickly or clapping your hands can interrupt the automatic flow of thoughts. It sends a message to your brain. This pattern is no longer in control. You are. That disruption creates enough space for clarity to enter. Think of it like hitting a reset button. You don't erase the thoughts. You just weaken their power long enough to choose a different direction. When you consistently interrupt the pattern physically, you train your mind to associate movement with control. You begin to build a habit of shifting your state instead of falling deeper into analysis. This skill becomes a tool you can use anywhere. During an argument, before an exam, while making a difficult decision, when you're alone at night and your mind starts racing. You learn that you do not have to wait for thoughts to calm down on their own. You can take authority over your inner world through the outer world of your body. Movement brings momentum. Momentum brings clarity. Clarity destroys overthinking. This is why some people think better while walking, why ideas come during workouts, why stress fades during physical activity. Your body is designed to release emotional tension through motion. The problem is that people let their thoughts lock their bodies in place. They sit frozen, thinking that if they stay still long enough, they will find the perfect solution, the perfect choice, the perfect answer. But the mind can't think clearly when the body is signaling danger, tension, or stagnation. When you shift your physical state, even just slightly, you create a new environment for your thoughts to operate in. Instead of spiraling, you gain perspective. Instead of panic, you regain presence. Instead of drowning in possibilities, you anchor yourself in the moment right in front of you. You realize that the thought you were obsessing over isn't as big as it felt. You realize you have more control than you imagined. You realize your state determines your clarity, and clarity determines your choices. And this becomes the beginning of breaking the overthinking habit at its root, because you're no longer letting your mind drag you into a loop. You're stepping out of the loop with the power of your own movement. Overthinking thrives in uncertainty. It feeds on the what-ifs, the possibilities that may or may not happen, the endless scenarios that your mind spins without any grounding in reality. When you find yourself stuck in overthinking, the first thing you need to understand is that most of what your mind is obsessing over is not actually within your control. Your energy is being wasted on things that cannot be changed, on events that haven't happened, on decisions that have not yet been made, and the more you focus on them, the more trapped you become. The key to stopping this destructive cycle is to bring your attention back to what you can influence, what you can act upon, what you can control in this very moment. When you focus on control, clarity replaces chaos, and action replaces worry. Start by asking yourself a simple but powerful question. What can I do right now that will make a difference? This shifts your energy from endless mental loops to actionable steps. Most people overthink because they are trying to solve every problem at once, or because they are paralyzed by the fear of making the wrong choice. But reality is that progress is built on small, deliberate actions. You don't need to solve the entire problem today. You don't need the perfect plan. You only need the next step, the next decision you can influence. When you take that step, no matter how small, you disrupt the momentum of overthinking. You move from being a passive observer of your life to being an active participant. This simple shift, focusing on what you can control, creates a sense of power and direction that overthinking cannot exist alongside. Another essential element is learning to recognize the difference between concern and control. Concern is thinking about something because it matters. Control is acting on it because you can make a difference. Overthinking happens when concern overwhelms control. People spend hours, days, even years thinking about problems they have no power to change, and in doing so, they feel busy while achieving nothing. By constantly asking yourself what you can control and what you cannot, you begin to separate useful thoughts from destructive ones. You start to see that some worries are irrelevant, some decisions are not yours to make, and some fears are simply projections of your imagination. This awareness is liberating. It frees mental energy to focus on solutions rather than on imagined catastrophes. It is the bridge between being stuck in your mind and being effective in your life. Once you focus on what you can control, momentum begins to build. Each small action reinforces the belief that you can influence your life and that you are not helpless in the face of uncertainty. This momentum is a natural antidote to overthinking because action creates feedback. When you act, you learn, you adjust, and you gain information that your mind can no longer fabricate. Overthinking thrives on assumptions and imagined outcomes. Action replaces assumptions with facts. Action replaces fear with clarity. Action replaces hesitation with confidence. Even the tiniest step forward can create a ripple effect that weakens the overthinking habit. The more you practice focusing on control, the more instinctively your mind will avoid spiraling into unnecessary worry. It is also important to manage your attention deliberately. Your mind will always wander toward uncertainty, toward imagined scenarios, toward the unknown. That is natural, but you can train your focus like a muscle. When you notice your thoughts drifting into overthinking, gently redirect them to what you can influence. Instead of asking, "What if this goes wrong?" ask, "What is the next right step I can take?" Instead of obsessing over someone else's actions, ask, "What is my part in this situation?" Your mind will begin to associate attention with productive action rather than with worry. Over time, this rewiring allows you to stay grounded in reality rather than trapped in hypotheticals. You begin to experience life moment by moment, choice by choice, rather than fear by fear. Finally, it is crucial to create structures that reinforce focus on control. Set priorities, make lists, schedule tasks, and commit to small, daily actions that move you forward. This reduces the mental clutter that fuels overthinking. By creating a system where your energy is channeled into what you can influence, You build a life where clarity and action dominate over worry and hesitation. Your thoughts stop running wild because they now have a direction, a purpose rooted in what you can do, rather than in endless speculation about what might happen. This practice doesn't just stop overthinking temporarily. It reshapes the way you approach challenges, decisions, and uncertainty permanently. The moment you fully embrace focusing on what you can control, you reclaim your power, your energy, and your peace, and overthinking loses its grip. Perfection is one of the greatest traps that keep people stuck in overthinking. Most overthinking does not come from a lack of ability. It comes from a fear of being imperfect. People spend countless hours analyzing, guessing, and worrying about whether their decisions, actions, or even thoughts are good enough. This relentless pursuit of perfection paralyzes progress. It convinces you that you must have all the answers, weigh every option, and anticipate every outcome before you move. But the truth is that perfection is an illusion, and waiting for it is the fastest route to stagnation. Progress, not perfection, is the key to breaking the cycle of overthinking. When you focus on movement, on taking action despite uncertainty, you weaken the grip of fear and free yourself from endless mental loops. Overthinking thrives when you elevate minor details to catastrophic importance. You tell yourself, if I make a mistake, everything will fall apart. Or if I don't do this perfectly, I'll fail. These thoughts are lies your mind creates to keep you safe, but they actually imprison you. When you replace the pursuit of perfection with a commitment to progress, your energy shifts from worry to doing. You start to focus on what matters most, taking the next step, learning from it, and adjusting as needed. Small, imperfect actions build momentum, and momentum is the antidote to overthinking. Every time you take action, even if it's not flawless, you teach your mind that mistakes are not catastrophic. They are part of the process of growth, learning, and achievement. One of the most powerful ways to shift from perfection to progress is to redefine what success means. Instead of expecting flawless outcomes, measure success by action. Did you move forward today, even slightly? Did you do something that brought you closer to your goal? Did you learn something new or correct a mistake along the way? This mindset removes the pressure of perfection and replaces it with measurable, actionable progress. Over time, your mind stops spinning in circles because it knows that success is not about being perfect. It is about consistently moving, adjusting, and improving. You begin to see that the fear that once fueled overthinking was never about reality. It was about imagined expectation. Another key aspect of overcoming perfectionism is embracing the power of experimentation. Life is an ongoing series of experiments. Every action you take is data, every decision is information, and every mistake is feedback. When you treat your life as a laboratory rather than a stage where you must perform flawlessly, overthinking loses its hold. You no longer fear taking the first step because you understand that it is not the final step. You no longer stress over possible failure because every outcome is a learning opportunity. Experimentation transforms fear into curiosity, hesitation into action, and doubt into discovery. It allows you to move forward with confidence, knowing that even if the result isn't perfect, it is still valuable. In addition, the pursuit of perfection is often fueled by comparison. You look at others and judge yourself based on their achievements, their successes, or the image they present. This comparison amplifies overthinking because it convinces you that your actions are never enough. The key to breaking free is to focus on your journey, not someone else's. Progress is measured internally by your own growth and effort, not by external benchmarks or the accomplishments of others. When you align your actions with your personal goals and values, you liberate yourself from the endless mental loops created by fear of judgment or inadequacy. You stop overthinking because your standard is no longer an impossible ideal, but your own consistent movement forward. Finally, embracing progress over perfection requires courage. It requires the willingness to step into uncertainty, to act before you feel completely ready, and to accept that mistakes are not failure. They are signals that you are moving. Courage is the muscle that strengthens each time you take action despite fear. Overthinking fades when courage becomes a habit because your mind learns that action, not hesitation, creates safety, control, and growth. The more you practice choosing progress, the more natural it becomes to act decisively, to release imagined expectations, and to trust in your ability to navigate whatever comes next. The fear that once trapped you in overthinking is replaced by a rhythm of doing, learning, and moving, and life begins to flow instead of stall. Overthinking thrives when your mind is idle, when it has no direction, and when it drifts without purpose. A wandering mind magnifies fear, doubts, and uncertainty, creating elaborate scenarios that often never happen. One of the most powerful ways to stop overthinking is to give your mind a mission, a clear focus, and a sense of purpose. When your thoughts are occupied with meaningful action rather than endless speculation, the endless loop of worry and hesitation loses its power. Your brain is designed to solve problems and pursue goals, but it becomes toxic when left to wander aimlessly. Giving your mind a mission redirects its energy, focuses its capacity, and transforms it from a source of anxiety into a tool of progress and creation. The first step in giving your mind a mission is to clarify your goals. If your mind does not know where it is going, it will fill the gaps with fear and doubt. Decide what matters most to you, what outcomes you want to create, and what direction you want your life to move in. This does not mean creating a rigid plan that eliminates flexibility, but rather establishing a clear destination for your focus. When your mind has a target, it begins to allocate energy efficiently. Thoughts that once spiraled aimlessly are now channeled into solutions, planning, and actionable ideas. Clarity of purpose is the antidote to the chaos of overthinking because it replaces imagined problems with real objectives and actionable steps. Once you have a clear goal, the next step is to structure your day, your mind, and your actions around that mission. Overthinking thrives on idle time and scattered attention. When your life is unstructured, your brain fills the gaps with worry, what-ifs, and self-doubt. By creating routines, habits, and schedules aligned with your objectives, you give your mind a framework to operate within. This reduces the tendency to overanalyze trivial matters or obsess over outcomes you cannot control. The structure itself is liberating because it provides clear markers of progress and boundaries for your energy. When your attention is focused on what matters and directed toward meaningful action, the noise of overthinking fades. Another critical aspect of giving your mind a mission is prioritization. Not all goals, tasks, or challenges are equal, and overthinking often occurs when your attention is scattered across too many possibilities. To reduce mental overload, identify the tasks and actions that have the highest impact and focus on them first. Break larger goals into smaller, actionable steps and tackle them consistently. This practice gives your mind a roadmap and a sense of achievement at every stage, which reduces the tendency to ruminate. When progress is visible, the fear and hesitation that fuel overthinking naturally diminish. Prioritization allows your brain to direct its energy toward meaningful action rather than unproductive speculation. Visualization also plays a powerful role in giving your mind a mission. When you can vividly imagine the outcome you are working toward, your mind becomes engaged in creating solutions rather than dwelling on problems. Visualization turns abstract goals into tangible objectives, which your brain can then focus on achieving. This process creates alignment between your thoughts, emotions, and actions. Instead of allowing the imagination to create anxiety-driven scenarios, you harness it to generate motivation, problem solving, and clarity. Your mind is no longer a playground for fear. it becomes an engine for progress. Accountability further strengthens the effect of giving your mind a mission. Sharing your goals, setting measurable targets, and committing to consistent action ensures that your energy is directed outward rather than inward. Overthinking often grows in isolation because there is no external measure to challenge your mental loops. By introducing accountability through mentors, peers, or structured self-assessment, you create feedback that keeps your mind engaged in real-world problem solving instead of endless hypotheticals. Accountability reinforces the habit of action, strengthens focus, and provides the motivation needed to maintain momentum. Ultimately, giving your mind a mission transforms your mental energy from a source of paralysis into a source of power. Overthinking is a habit that fills the vacuum created by lack of focus, lack of direction, and idle attention. When you define a mission, structure your life around it, prioritize actions, visualize outcomes, and hold yourself accountable, your mind no longer has the space to dwell on imagined fears or endless what-ifs. Instead, it becomes a tool for solving problems, making decisions, and creating forward movement. This shift is not just about stopping overthinking temporarily. It is about rewiring your mind to operate from clarity, purpose, and action, turning mental energy into results and your life into momentum. Overthinking is a habit of fear. It thrives when you hesitate, when you doubt, when you imagine the worst, case scenarios that may never come to pass. One of the most powerful ways to break free from this habit is to build the habit of courage. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to act despite fear. Every time you take action in the face of uncertainty, you weaken the grip of overthinking. You teach your mind that you are in control, that hesitation is optional, and that progress is possible even when conditions are not perfect. The habit of courage transforms fear from a paralyzing force into a guiding signal, showing you where growth and opportunity lie. Courage begins with small steps. Most people think of courage as grand gestures, leaving a job, confronting a difficult person, making a life-changing decision. But courage is built in the everyday moments when you choose to act despite discomfort. It is saying what needs to be said even when you are afraid of judgment. It is starting a task even when you doubt your abilities. It is moving forward even when the path is unclear. These small acts accumulate, reinforcing the belief that fear is not a stop sign, but a signal to engage. Overthinking loses power because the mind realizes that hesitation is optional, and that action produces results that thinking alone cannot. Another key aspect of building courage is redefining failure. Overthinking often grows from fear of making mistakes, from the belief that a wrong choice will destroy your life or define your worth. Courage teaches you that mistakes are not failures. They are data, feedback, and stepping stones toward mastery. Every time you act and adjust, you learn something new. Every time you face fear and move forward, you expand your capacity to handle future challenges. This mindset reduces the anxiety that fuels overthinking because the mind no longer views uncertainty as dangerous. It views it as an opportunity to grow, to learn, and to gain control. Courage also requires commitment to action over perfection. Overthinking thrives when we demand flawless outcomes before we act, when we let fear of imperfection prevent progress. Courage is the practice of stepping into action regardless of whether you feel fully ready. It is understanding that movement itself is progress, that clarity comes from engagement, and that life rewards those who act decisively. The habit of courage builds confidence, and confidence silences overthinking because it proves again and again that you can handle whatever comes next. Every choice made in action strengthens this feedback loop, creating a life driven by momentum instead of hesitation. A crucial component of cultivating courage is presence. Overthinking exists in projections. imagined fears about the future, or imagined judgments about the past. Courage anchors you in the present where action is possible. By focusing on what you can do right now, rather than what might happen later or what has already happened, you reclaim control over your mental and emotional energy. Presence allows you to respond rather than react, to choose rather than be paralyzed, to act rather than analyze endlessly. The more you practice being present, the more naturally courage arises, and the less room there is for overthinking to dominate your mind. Building the habit of courage also requires resilience. Courage is not a single act. It is a pattern of choosing action despite fear repeatedly over time. You will encounter setbacks, resistance, and moments when fear feels overwhelming. The difference between someone trapped in overthinking and someone who acts courageously is persistence. Each act of courage strengthens the habit, trains the mind to respond with action instead of anxiety, and rewires your nervous system to expect engagement rather than hesitation. Resilience ensures that one moment of fear does not define your trajectory. It ensures that momentum continues even when challenges arise. Finally, courage compounds over time. Each choice made in spite of fear builds a foundation for the next one. Each action proves to the mind that overthinking is optional and that decision and movement are possible. Overthinking diminishes naturally because the mind learns a new pattern. Fear signals action, not stagnation. Uncertainty signals growth, not paralysis. The habit of courage transforms your relationship with your thoughts, your fears, and your life itself, creating a feedback loop where action breeds clarity, confidence, and strength, and hesitation loses its grip entirely.